This is Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. An informal chats with top business moguls as they share their stories of failure and success in a fun and relaxed way. Get entertained, educated, and unlock the secrets to success.
Welcome to Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman. We have a returning guest, Bobbie Lynn Weir, the Honorable Bobbie Lynn Weir.
Thank you.
It's exciting to have you back.
Thank you.
So I want to give kind of a setup as we talk through what you've done since you were last on the program. And it's been exciting to see the evolution of your work within the community and within the state of Texas. But let me give our listeners an understanding of who you are and what you've done. So you have to bear with me. This is a little unique because on Business Decoded, we try to make sure we give people an understanding of business tools, techniques, ideas that can help them build their own operation or build success. And that's really been our focus. How do we help people build? How do we share ideas and information in a way that helps people to build success in their lives and in their careers? And that aligns with what you're doing in your work. So I'm hoping that people will listen to the program and then take that back to their communities and within those communities back to their businesses and in education to share this program. But you are a teacher.
Correct.
You're a career and technical education teacher, specifically, within a Dallas region school district. But more interestingly, your vision for how to teach your students culminated into a very entrepreneurial business approach to the creation of a new hotel lobby area learning system in partnership with Omni Hotels. So that's a unique part of what you've done and what you've built. And people ask, well, why build this program? And we'll get into more of a conversation in a moment. But
just know I appreciate all the beautiful comments that you're making, because sometimes as a teacher, we don't realize what we are doing in the present and how it makes a difference. So thank you for those beautiful comments and compliments that you're giving.
And absolutely. And with the Hotel Lobby Area Learning Center that we often refer to as the Hotel Hub, it's a workforce development program designed to help people build a successful career within the hotel industry. And we'll come back to more of those details. But beyond that, you're National Board Certified, which is incredible.
Yes.
Less than 3% of teachers, educators nationwide become National Board Certified. So it's a tough process,
Absolutely.
but it's a unique designation that you have. On top of that, you're National Board Certified with a CTE, Career and Technical Education designation. Mm-hmm. And then within that designation, your focus area is leisure and recreation services, which encompasses the hotel industry.
Correct.
And you were the first to get that designation in Texas.
I was very excited and proud of myself of that achievement.
And then beyond that, you were selected for your district's Leadership Academy, which you will finish up in the coming weeks. And above all of that, last year you were selected by the governor of Texas you were appointed by the governor of Texas and confirmed to the State Board for Educator certification. And what's unique about this board, as I continue to learn more, is that you develop all the certification and continuing education requirements and standards of conduct for all public school teachers in the entire state of Texas. It's an awesome responsibility.
It is a big responsibility, but I thought I was just kidding on a board. But we do oversee teacher certifications for the public school system, disciplinary actions as well, and education preparation programs. So it's great.
Well, let's talk about your hotel hub. I find your hotel hub amazing, and I'm hoping that people that are listening to the program will take an opportunity to go visit. Because you took what was a regular classroom in a school, in a high school, and you received the investment. We spoke about this on our last program, but you received an investment from the school district and a partnership with Omni that helped to furnish the room, that converted it from a standard classroom to a really magnificent hotel lobby area. It's like going on into the Waldorf Astoria. You have the smell of this beautiful environment. If I were in high school today and I was in this classroom, I would walk in with a level of peace about being in such a beautiful room and learning environment that I would be excited.
Well, I appreciate that. It definitely was passion the love and passion of trying to make a difference with our young people and for their future. Please don't forget that we also play hotel lobby music along with the smell.
You do.
And the ceiling tiles and the lighting and the type of furniture that is in the room, that all makes a huge difference. I would have to share with you, I appreciate you sharing my accomplishments. This last couple of years, with all my teaching years of experience, I will never have this again in my teaching career. And so it's definitely a pleasure. And I'm glad I've stayed on track of what my belief system is from the business industry before I became a teacher, that I think I am making a difference. And my goal is to continue to make a difference. But the Hotel Hub has made a difference with our students. And I think that's why we're here today.
It's absolutely incredible. So it's worth noting, you mentioned that you might not have another major event like this, but one, you've had a lot of accomplishments. When I talk to business people, if a business person has one good run in a company, that's pretty common, and it's a good opportunity. You know,
Right.
A lot of times business leaders and entrepreneurs, they create a few companies before they really figure out what works. And so a couple companies might fail, and then they hit the one that does well. You know, in the private sector, they might call it the unicorn business, but it's the one that does exceptionally well. You've had a few really wonderful runs, though. As you pointed out, you had a great career in business, which helped prepare you for preparing students. So you considered Coach Weir.
Yes.
By name to your students.
Yep.
But you bring to the academic environment over a decade of experience in the business environment, having served as vice president of a bank. You served as an executive at Deloitte in Washington, D.C. before returning to Texas. You have a great education from Abilene Christian University in marketing. So all of those experiences help to prepare you for what is a really big opportunity for your students.
Well, I thank you for that. You know, when we're growing up and as we're going through our business career life, we don't realize when you go from one, let's say, one job to another, how they build upon each other and they really create this great foundation. And that is part of the reason why I made that change to become a teacher. And I try to utilize all that I had learned from the industries that I'd worked in. A couple of other ones to go to. I was the director of marketing for an architectural firm in D.C. as well, right. and a commercial property manager. And I bring those up because as we talk about the Hotel Hub, you will see that some of that is woven into how I teach my students and within my belief of my teaching philosophy to them as I prepare them for their future. Because at the end of the day, they're not going to have someone like me or their parents. And I just want them to make good decisions, great choices, be risk takers, and to believe in themselves, and to be, more than importantly, a productive citizen in our community.
Now, most of the people are listening to this program on a streaming service. So they're listening to the audio. They might see it on YouTube for the video or through LinkedIn. But so they're not going to see the video, but it's worth pointing out that your room was also featured on Card in the Classroom for NBC News here in DFW. And it's a short video. So if anyone's listening, check out the video, A Card in the Classroom regarding the Hotel Hub or the Hotel Lobby Area Learning Center. But it gives you seeing the visual of it gives you such a unique perspective on how special this room is. And I'd love just to talk to you about the classroom, but I think you were going to say something. Well,
I just wanted to talk about that video for a moment. If the audience, if they are listening, hopefully you are listening. Omni Hotels in Richardson High School, Carter in the Classroom, type that in and it comes up. It's 3 minutes and 20 seconds. And when we did see the final edit, I even was surprised of how it turned out. It more than achieved my expectations of Wayne Carter coming to the classroom. And please know, the reason why I want to share this quick story is when he came to the classroom, him and his cameraman almost didn't film us because when they looked in the classroom, they saw the students and the Omni staff in there. And the cameraman goes to Wayne, he goes, "Hey, we need to talk because they're all just standing around, and there's adults in there because they're used to just seeing straight students. And so from that, I had to explain to Wayne Carter that that's part of our curriculum. And we start our day with stand-up meetings. That's also what happens in hotels. They have a stand-up meeting, which happens in like a shift change. And so from there, they did come in, and then they understood and realized it was an Omni training day where the Omni team came in to work with our students one-on-one of different job tasks of, front desk, housekeeping, how to learn how to hem pants, how to work with guests and create their banquet event orders, and how do you set a table, how do you set up audio visual. And then at the end of that video, and that's what I do request from the audience to make sure they watch it to the end, is the personal connection that is made. And that was a huge surprise. And with that video, when it was featured, Wayne did try to contact me that day to let me know that it was coming out. But I was on the golf course with our students, right, and he couldn't meet me. But what did happen, and was a testament, we must be doing something right and getting the word out, is people started texting me and said, "Oh gosh, Bobbie, I just saw you on TV." And I go, "What?" We've even been into some commercials. So right, it's the beginning of showcasing our students, the hotel industry, and how all of us have moments at hotels that make a difference in our lives.
Now, and education has continued to evolve over my years in business. From a private company perspective, I built several recruiting programs. I'm always trying to find new ways to find people to help us fill the positions that we have available. And building those partnerships with colleges, building the partnerships with high schools. I think sometimes people might underestimate and undervalue the idea of going into a high school to build a program. But what you've created is such an amazing opportunities for companies to come in, look at the quality of the student that you're producing, what they're learning. They're getting a certification when they finish your program within the industry, which is just special. But education has changed a lot. And I know that you have dual enrollment opportunities for students and other career and technical education buildings specifically focused in that area. But yours is really special. So not only are they learning in your classroom, the industry, you're also having them transported for an on-site internship at some of the best hotels in the region.
Well, in the internship program, before we built the hotel hub, that's all I did. Is I was on site at the hotels, and students are bused to the hotel, and I work with them side by side. And I appreciate you pointing out the difference of these particular students that are in the internship program, because one of my executive CTE directors a few years ago, when he came to the hotel and to observe my students, I just turned the students over to him. I took a step back. And by the time he was finished, 30 minutes later, they took him on a tour of the hotel, demonstrated all what they do in each of the departments. And I do mean all departments: human resources, engineering, housekeeping, food and beverage, banquets. It doesn't matter. We work in all the departments. He came back and he goes, "Bobbie, now explain this to me. How come you're the only one in our district that has this program?" He could not believe the maturity of these students, their professionalism, their communication skills, their confidence. And so hearing that from a new executive CTE director who saw the program for the first time, I knew then, and I made note, that I am making a difference and that this was special. So then you progress 3 years later, we had the pandemic happen, but I knew I needed to come up with something different to, get my program back, because I did lose my program completely to ground zero. And by having the hotel hub classroom is kind of an introductory before they go to the internship. So they really get to practice those skills before we go out. And even this morning, I was talking to our bus driver who takes her students to the internship program, and her name is Mrs. B. And I have to tell you, today she even said, Coach Weir, I've seen a difference in these kids that they just don't see it in themselves, how they've matured,
right.
They're professional, they're communicating, and they get the job done.
Right.
And that's the beauty of the hotel internship program versus other practicums that are taught in the public school. And because these students are those students that most people don't think about. And they, believe it or not, if we were to track where they are 5 years from now, they are ahead of their classmates, and the amount of money that they make, as far as their character, their professional etiquette, work ethic, their maturity, self-esteem. They're usually an assistant manager or a general manager running a team, and that's what makes the difference.
So it's intriguing. You've mentioned this, but I think it's worth diving into this. So as I've lived across the country, traveled the country, setting up businesses, hiring new operations, oftentimes over the past 25, 30 years of my career, we talk about the technical side for a student, whether they're graduating from college or high school. So we speak about the technical side. What is it they're learning that makes them proficient? But then we speak about the soft skill side, their ability to lead teams, speak in front of teams, adjust to challenges in an environment. And you're giving them both. I think
you're
sometimes
giving out my secret sauce.
I know. But sometimes people misunderstand kind of the technical side, and then how do you layer on the soft skill side? And you're doing that because I've been with you. So recently I attended an event. It was a jazz event that your students were invited to manage and assist with. But what's cool, and I'd love for you to speak to this, you have your students set up in teams. You have a leader for each one of the core areas. So whether it's AV or whether it's food, and you can define the specific technical details, they're leading it. And then you have someone leading those stand-ups that you mentioned. And I didn't get that level of experience until probably well after college, where I was able to lead in a team like that. So the experience they're giving them is incredible. And as a parent, I would hope that most parents would want their kids to get in this program, whether they go to college or not, because it's preparing them for the work world a lot earlier than they might get otherwise.
Well, you're giving out my secret.
And that's the whole point.
The whole secret is that, part of the reason why the district did get behind the hotel hub is I told them what is one trait that every industry wants, and that has to do about customer service. And hospitality, or the hotel industry, does it the best. And that's what you see as my secret sauce, I feel like, behind the scenes, or secret ingredient. And it's kind of woven, and I kind of challenge them, but build off of their strengths, what makes a difference for them, and to build that character. I think sometimes the students don't even realize that they're learning it. Now, of course, you should interview them and ask them, right? Because they'll go, "Oh no, Coach Weir is really hard," but at the same time, the ones who become the leaders, like that manages the team, they realize how much they have grown and where is it going to get them to next. And that is the key ingredient for all of them, is knowing where they started and where do they end up at the end of the school year, and reminding them, do you realize this is the way you were before, and this is where you are now? And I have to tell you, it is a challenge, because, having 140 or 150 students, to know each of those characters and their etiquette and where was it, it is a challenge, but it's nothing like when I used to manage 1,200 CPAs. So having 150 is, I can do that and help them.
You brought up, I think, a good Business Decoded point, in trying to figure out how 150 people operate, what makes them tick, so that you can give them what they need to grow and mature and evolve. And I've coached a lot of managers and executives through the years, and they struggle with that piece. Sometimes they're a little too harsh, and they're harsh the same way across the board. which doesn't really help their team to grow and succeed and excel. And I've seen your students. I've been a mentor and coming in your class and spoken to your class. I've seen that evolution. But what I found most amazing, which makes you, I think, a really brilliant leader, is that you give them guidance, you give them a little structure, you give them a little toughness in your approach, but you give them an extreme amount of independence. So you give them all of that structure behind the scene, and then you let them go and figure it out and make decisions. So you empower them to make decisions, and a lot of executives struggle with that piece within companies. So it's amazing how you've done that.
Well, and I think that goes back to the keys of business. And for me, why was I successful in business? Because a lot of people are like, were you a failure in the business world? No, I was not. I did extremely well for myself. It comes down to relationships and building those relationships and for them to trust you. As any good marketing person, the only way that you can sell a service or sell a product is to develop that trust and to whatever you say you're going to do, to follow up.
Right.
And I think that is why my students do believe me over time. You know, at the beginning of the school year, I would tell you that they're like, I don't like her.
Right.
You know, the ones who need a little structure or a little toughness, right? But when you come in second semester, I mean, it's beautiful second semester. Everything's working. Everybody knows what the expectations are. Right. They know I expect a certain level of professionalism and courtesy. And remind them about customer service phrases, but work ethic. And that, to me, is what makes it worthwhile of developing those relationships and that trust. It makes a huge difference.
You speak of structure. I didn't mention this earlier. So, people can't get a full scope of the program that you're discussing. But one of the items that's required for those students participating in the program, if they're going off site for an event or to the hotel, is that they have to dress in uniform.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to have the right pants and the right shoes and the right shirt, and you help them make sure they provide. A lot of the hotel and events will provide those uniforms to support the program. But getting dressed and looking the part, having the shirts neat and tucked in, that's an incredible experience, even though it seems minor, but it's an incredible experience from a business perspective. And making sure that people understand the requirement of showing that professionalism. Well,
I appreciate that because at the beginning of the school year, when I ask them, they have to buy black pants, a black polo shirt, black belt, black non-skid shoes. Hair has to be in a ponytail, you know, if you have long hair. And it is really nice when you take them off-site to work events. Like we do work events, golf tournaments, like recently, the jazz band opportunity, how they are able to blend in. People take them more serious because if they were in their everyday clothes, they would go, who are they? These are just high school students. But they realize once they start serving them, and like I have a couple pictures here, showed them the other day, and they're like, gosh, they look so professional in serving food. And sometimes these individuals are paying $50 to maybe even $200 per person for food, and these are young people that are smiling and enjoying what they're doing. But as they work together as a team, they help each other to do it right. I mean, you should have seen them at that event in the kitchen with the chef going, no, you don't do it that way. It was just really fun to see them make it light of it, but to also help each other and I saw your team lead, your manager for the group, carrying his clipboard with his, is it the BEO? It's the BEO and also a diagram of
So what is the BEO, by the way, for those listening?
The BEO is a banquet event order, and everything is on there from the itinerary of the event, what they ordered, what students are working, and where are they supposed to be, how many guests are you expecting, and the day of the event. And no, that was a change for him because he thought he was going to have to serve. And I go, no. You're the manager on duty. Right. You need to go and observe your coworkers. And
your students in that program, though, they range from 9th grade to 12th grade. Right? Or roughly? No,
it's 10th grade through 12th grade.
Okay. But they're getting it at a young age. It's not all seniors. not all juniors. So they're learning
It's
and
a
they're
good mix.
progressing they're progressing through their high school career, and they're learning. I mean, I can't imagine being a part of a sophisticated event like you just described as a sophomore, and then learning year after year and building on that experience. It's so incredible.
Well, so another way I do teach is when we have other events, like I took a group of students to Dallas Hotel Conference, is to try to split that up with the different age groups. A couple seniors, couple juniors, couple sophomores.
Right.
So that way it's an opportunity to pass on to the next group of what is happening next year, because I can never make promises that we're going to have the same events from year to year, but to share, and they also reflect with the other students of what they did and how did it happen. And trust me, I do love my sophomores, and they are so energetic because a couple of those are really stars.
Yeah.
Now, let me talk to you about the freshmen, but I do teach another class called Principles of Business.
Right.
And some of those students that are freshmen, they're very curious because they are also taught in the hotel hub. And that was part of the agreement with the district was I didn't care what other classes I taught, as long as I could teach them in the hotel hub.
Nice.
And how I sold that was, as a business person, I was used to always working in the lobby somewhere or in a ballroom. And so this is the same concept, except we're just doing it in school. And that's why we have the principal of business students. But actually, I recruit students as freshmen to come into the program because they start to get curious. And one student in particular, actually two. 2 or 3 of them this year came from my Principles of Business classes. Right. One of them I've had for a 3rd year and another one a 2nd year. And that 2nd year will be a senior next year. She's coming back for a 3rd year. And so that's when you have repeat students come through your class, that's a repeat customer coming back for more. So I feel like I'm doing something right.
On the private sector side, and I know that you have done this as well, the succession planning process is so critical. As employees grow to new positions, you want to be able to backfill that, but you want them to be trained and ready. And that's what you're doing with your students. That Dallas Hotel Conference you mentioned, I happened to attend that conference as well. And what's important to know is that you took these high school students of varying ages and grade levels to an event with major sophisticated business investors from around the country.
Yes.
So you had these big hotel company owners, you had these huge hotel industry, real estate developers and investors. Several hundred, I think around 400 or 500 of these professionals within the industry, and you took your high school students. And they did exceptionally well.
Well, thank you.
At being a professional within the hotel industry at this event. And the other thing that was unique, and I watched you do this, you had those students approach the CEOs of these major companies and present them and their program and make an introduction.
It all comes down to marketing, Ronnie.
Well, it's not just marketing for your program, but I think about it from when I was a student and also from a parent with a student around the same age. How incredible of an experience that they wouldn't often get from their own internal families. But you're able to do this from an education and a lot of other classes. If I was in a math class in high school or in English, there's nothing wrong with those because I'm getting valuable lessons here. But they might not expose me to that real life side. Like, how do I use the math and the science and some of these other items that I'm learning in school in a real workplace environment? It's incredible.
Well, I appreciate that. The reason why the Dallas Hotel Conference was good for our students, number one, we were invited to attend and to be recognized. And it was because of the hotel hub. Only 6 students were invited. We could only take 6. But it was when the reason why I say it's marketing is they were recognized in this group of 400 to 500 adults that were investors and developers and owners, right? And so that gave them a sense of pride. But I did have to talk with the group that put on that event to see if we could, get some. They invited us, so they did want to recognize them. But from that, it made them gain such pride of what they are doing. And then afterwards, I just wanted them to work on networking. And by giving them I wanted to say marching orders to work in partners, I gave them my personal my business cards as they went to go meet individuals. Right. And it's, again, to practice communication skills, socialization skills. Right. How do you you and I are the same type of people. We'll get on the elevator and start a conversation. And this is something I believe is important for all of our young people to learn.
What's interesting, in high school, I would have never done that. You mentioned that I would. I just wouldn't have. But that's because we've learned it over time from the business world, and because I know that makes a difference at the end of the day. Right. I guess that's part of my belief system of why I try to give my students these unique experiences, because you don't learn them until you've older, right? Or maybe you have a parent who exposes you to those opportunities. But if I can do that in my program, it sets us apart from other programs. Right. And I know we're nearing the end of our program, but you mentioned events. There are two events that I'd love to point out, if you don't mind.
Okay.
One is you took and I think you mentioned this earlier, you took about 60 students in your programs to visit the Dallas regional office Dallas, I think it's the national office actually, for Hilton.
The Hilton corporate regional office here in Dallas.
And they had the corporate office near Virginia, but you brought them here, and there were, I think, about 6 to 7 leaders with Hilton of various different departments. Mm-hmm. And what was amazing, and I happened again to attend this event because I was intrigued by it, but these students spent a good portion of their day in a room learning from these executives on how they started their career, how they built their career, what they do now, the importance even of social media into their marketing platform. What an amazing experience for these young people.
I was glad how it evolved and how the beginning of it and the end of it. And I do my thank you, Hilton, where they wanted to reach out to us too, because they learned we had a hotel management program. Right. But what was cool about that particular event was, we always talk to them about the hotels, but it was good for them to see a different perspective from a corporate office. Right. Instead of you always, with guests, here they were able to see where everything kind of comes together. A lot of them learned about revenue management, how important and valuable that is, social media. They couldn't believe the security, because that team is the one who created the security card for all of us to be able to go in and out of our rooms. Right. And then there's now these apps is another department. So it took it to another level for all of our students. But what I thought was really powerful was towards the last hour. And of course, that's after they've developed some relationships and a great foundation and understanding of a corporate office, was when the executives you were talking about were asked what would make what was their recommendation or what's the word I'm trying to say? Right.
Their advice,
what is something, their advice, there it is. What is your advice that you would like to give? And they were straight on, and the students couldn't believe it. And it was really great information, and I took notes to help remind them of what that was. And this hearing from the students, from their words, and how do I know it's their words, is because after we finish each event, students, they write thank you emails. Professional emails are really valuable as well. They were able to direct their comments specifically to the executive that made the difference for them that day. And I believe that helps our students with their communication skills, their reading, writing, and listening. And then for the executive, they made a difference. And then some of the students were surprised that executive wrote them back.
I love it.
So again, I feel like it's a privilege. I feel lucky, but I am building off of all the business lessons that I've learned from, which is the School of Hard Knocks. Right. And my motto, which I tell students, is in life, we repeat the lesson until we learn it.
Very true. Now, I like the email piece because there's an etiquette behind email, and I think the younger group now, they're used to tweeting in such shorter characters or communicating in such shorter characters. And with acronyms, that writing a professional email or letter, which you're teaching them, it's just so incredible, particularly as they begin to enter the business community. Last event that I'd love for you to mention, you mentioned the Hilton, we spoke about the Dallas Hotel Conference and the Jazz event, but you also took them on a very strategic job fair. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a job fair in your school. It wasn't a job fair for high school students. It was a job fair for professional.
Real job fair.
Well, it was a job fair for professional adults. Mm-hmm. And I believe you were the only school program at this event.
Correct.
And you took a group of about 30, I believe, students, yes. Right? That was amazing. Now, they had a reward at the end, which is fantastic. They went to a Dallas Stars game.
It does help.
They did. They went to a Dallas Stars game. But tell that story briefly about going to an event with real adults, professionals of all ages, young, recent college graduates to mature adults. They were there to find a job, and you took your students because you wanted them to understand what that looked like from a process perspective. Mm-hmm. You had already worked on the resume and kind of coached them on how to build that interview and engagement process. But then you take them to a real life event. You put them straight
I sure did.
into a professional event and ask them to go survive.
Well, first, let me back up. As much as I feel you're giving me compliments about this particular event, I need to take a step back to say, how did this event come about? Okay. We would not have been at that event if it wasn't for one of my past students and who happens to be currently one of my teacher aides, Wonderful. A student who's a senior, and he couldn't work it out to be one of my interns this year. But he loves the Dallas Stars. He knew about this event. He's seen it for a couple of years, I guess. Okay. And he was determined that we were going to go to the Dallas Stars Career Fair Day. And because he wanted our students to have the experience of a field trip of going to a Dallas Stars game. So I have to give kudos to him of bringing this all together.
Nice.
And at the end of the day of, where did we start and where we ended up, it was so incredible. Yes, we want to do it again. But it was interesting after Christmas break. We started working on those resumes, started working on job interviewing skills and getting those details out. And students also had to pay for a part of the cost to go to a Dallas Stars game. But again, my teacher aide and I had applied for a grant that helped pay for some of it. So nice. They weren't out as much money because I'm always concerned about money for our students. How much is this costing? But when we got there on the day of the event, nobody was there yet. We were there early. And then I suggested, why don't y'all just go to the plaza for a few minutes? And, just to kill time. And they were like, this is easy peasy. Like, hey, we're having a great day. We're out of school. Woo-hoo. All right. So but after 15 minutes, they come around the corner. They saw at least 600 adults dressed so business-like. Right. And some of them had their portfolios. Ladies were in high heels. Men were in suit jackets. And you should have seen them when they looked at me with terror in their eyes. Coach Weir, I'm scared. And so it was so funny how it just all had changed. Yeah. And that wasn't my plan at all. And so for it to naturally happen was great. And of course, then I have to share with them that this is your competition. Right. This is your competition when you graduate. Because you're not competing with other high school students now. You're competing with adults. But you guys can do this. You're prepared. Right. And then gave them some last minute instructions of, what to say, how to say it, reviewing how to greet people. Be careful of your conversations because you never know who's around you. You don't want to say something that to a potential employer may be standing there that might be embarrassing, and gave them a couple examples. Right. But they went, and couple hours later, they were so proud of themselves of how much they learned and how valuable it was. And for them to say, Coach Weir, this was worth it. Yeah. And they went back sharing with the other students. So
they didn't just walk, though, the job fair environment. They stood in line like the other
Yes,
candidates.
They stood in line.
They had their interview with the representatives for those companies, and they had dozens and dozens and dozens of companies. Incredible.
And some potential employers were so kind, because one student handed his resume to them, and they told him that they basically were not interested because he had all these errors on his resume. So for them to have a real live learning experience like that was great. And then I had another student who really wanted to work with this company, and his classmate was offered a job, but he wasn't offered a job. And he was kind of sad. And I go, well, do you want to be offered a job? And they're like, yes. And I said, okay, come on, let's go. And they're like, okay, we're going to watch Coach Weir in action. Right. So it was kind of funny. But again, they did walk away, both of them, with job offers. That's cool. Because some of the companies did have part-time jobs or summer jobs for 16 to 18-year-olds. And
it's good to get kind of that first fear out of the way. You know, the first time you do something, you're a little nervous about it, and it becomes easier each time you do it. And so that's part of the beauty of that specific experience. You just made me think. I was watching a program the other day about one of his sons who was a NASCAR race driver, and his father was also, you know, he's from an established NASCAR racing family, and his father passed away in a NASCAR race. And he mentioned in that moment, he realized that he lost his coach, his mentor, that he could go to him for anything, and that he realized that he would be on his own to figure things out. What's neat about what you're doing is that you're giving these kids an opportunity to be in an environment and learn, but you there as their coach, and you there as their support system. So they can make errors like what you mentioned on the resume, and then come back to you and figure it out. It's really cool to see that in real life action.
Well, I appreciate that. I would also tell you what is cool is, even like last Friday, received a phone call from a student who graduated from the program 10 years ago and just wanted to come by and talk and see the school. I've had some students call because they were in the process of making a career decision. Should they go this way or this other direction? And so it's nice for them to come back.
Right.
But I feel like it is my responsibility that I portray myself as a career coach. And I tell them, you know, I want you to come back and to feel comfortable to me, and that I'm there for them to help them. So it's a privilege when they come back after they've graduated. They're young adults. You know, these students now are in their late 20s, early 30s, and making really good decisions, but most of all, being productive citizens in our community.
I love it. And so I'll wrap up in saying this. On Business Decoded, as I mentioned, our goal is to connect with entrepreneurs, businesses, business owners, people in the business industry. This program is unique to me. You're in education. You were a business leader as well. But program is unique because I think, if anything, it says to business owners, if you're recruiting staff, if you're looking to build up your organization, it's important to have good partnerships like what Bobbie Lynn Weir has created within her school program. Those partnerships are so critical. And I must say that you come from a great school district that was supportive of your program. You come from a great state where the governor personally recognized your program through a proclamation for what you've done and what you've given to the students in the state of Texas. And you've got a lot of good business support, whether it's Omni or the Renaissance or Hilton and a lot of the other partners that you have across the region. It's just incredible. And that's an example of how do you make business work, how do you make communities work, and how do you make our educational system work. And career and technical education is such an important part.
It is.
As you mentioned, that might not be recognized as much. So on Business Decoded, it's just what I recognize in our conversation is that you're decoding the business of hotels for students.
That's really, a good way to put it.
You are. You're giving them an insight that they might not otherwise get using your professional experience and then the professional experiences of other business leaders within the hotel industry. You're decoding this for them. You're giving them an opportunity to learn and build success in their careers. And so I appreciate what you're doing, but I wanted our listener to understand why we have education highlighted on this specific program.
Well, I appreciate that. And I guess here are my words as we wrap up today. Being a marketing person and an industry person, the hotel industry, and students, it is our responsibility to create lasting, memorable moments and experiences. So marketing, hotel industry, and students. They're all connected.
Yeah.
And I believe it's my job to make a difference and to create those moments for each individual as that comes across my way. And that way we have beautiful young people carrying on what we want in our world today.
I love it.
Thank you for your time today.
The Honorable Bobbie Lynn Weir, thank you.
Goodness.
Coach Weir to your students,
Yes.
thank you. I appreciate you coming back on Business Decoded.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Business Decoded with Ronnie Spellman.
Thank you for listening to Business Decoded podcast with Ronnie Spellman. Please be sure to subscribe and share and stay tuned for more incredible Business Decoded episodes.